gave up a TV job to start a podcast in your basement. If that doesn't scream midlife crisis, I don't know what does.
It was Championship Sunday here in Indianapolis. What's the mindset then coming in as a defending champion?
I want to win. No, I want to win.
The young lady over my shoulder, Caitlin Clark.
Not the best looking guy. And I don't think anyone's going to sit here and say, Matt Randazzo was really good looking.
What has this last month, 2 months, 3 months been like for you? It's an important fan base for the Fighting Illini, is it not?
It is.
He turned 69 years young last week. You look good, Coach.
Oh, try it. Thank you.
Welcome to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. And it is Friday, March 7th. Thank you so much for being with us. We got a great show for you today. If you are watching on YouTube, we appreciate that. Thank you for doing that. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe ASAP. We appreciate that as well. Up over 700 subscribers, looking to inch our way closer to 1,000. We are also live on X right now. X has been very, very good to the show. So if you're watching us live on X, we appreciate that as well. And then also, of course, every single show goes to the podcast form after we get done with the show, so you can check us out on any of the podcasting platforms. And some good shows if you didn't keep up during the week, and I get it, it's two more hours every single day. On Monday we had Gary Dolphin and Pat Anger together. Worth the download and the listen on Podcaster. Go watch it as well. Those two awesome as usual. Also my good friend Scott Docterman on Wednesday. Was outstanding, talking a lot of NFL football, the combine, all of those kind of things. So go check out Doc's episode on Wednesday as well. All of it still very relevant, still very timely when it comes to the world of sports. And of course, the shows on Tuesday and Thursday, a lot of fun as well. Of course, a big show today, a lot of March Madness to get to. In a matter of moments, I'll be joined by my good friend Chad Leistikow. He's live in Indianapolis. The Iowa women do it again. They win again, their 10th straight victory in the Big Ten tournament. They knock off Michigan in their redemption tour, revenge tour, however you want to look at it. So we'll be joined by Chad in just a matter of moments. Also coming up in the show, we'll be joined by the Hall of Famer over at St. Ambrose University, Ray Shovlain, a good friend of mine. We catch up with Ray, talk about his 42 years at St. Ambrose, how much longer he wants to keep going, because he's not done yet. He wants to keep rolling, and a bunch of other good stuff with Ray Shovlain. And also some big high school basketball tonight, including at Sherrard. We'll be joined by my friends Ty and Jim Taylor from WRMJ coming up in hour number 2 as well. So much to get to. I'm super excited about the show, and we will start the show with a very familiar face to us, the one and only Chad Leistikow, joining us from Indianapolis. And Chad, I know you had to be up late last night because that was a late game here. So thank you for doing this. And you're writing about more victories at the Big Ten tournament for the Iowa women. A good night in Indianapolis last night, wasn't it? Chad, we're going to hop in. Chad, I'm going to interrupt you just for a second because I'm not hearing you. There you go.
You know what? I was on mute. That's a really rookie mistake here. I got the professional mic, and I muted myself intentionally so I wouldn't, cause any stir while you're doing the intro, and then I screwed up. So,
well, no, that's funny because you had me flipping out. I was like looking like, and the funny thing, Chad, is about 10 minutes before the show started, my internet went out completely, and I called Mediacom. It was just
my fault.
I called Mediacom, God bless them, and they're like, yeah, we got planned workout in your area today. It's going to go on and off. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So anyways, you're the least of my worries. And I'll do it again. Chad Leistikow joining us from Indianapolis. Chad, talk about last night, because it was another victorious night for the Iowa women at the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, this is having covered these women for several years in the postseason. Now you just get used to them winning, and so once again, this is 11 in a row now in the Big Ten tournament. It's just a crazy stat. And if you go back to Caitlin's freshman year, they're 14-1 in the Big Ten tournament since then. They're tested for that's hard to do. That's really hard to do. It's just impressive how Jan Jensen has gotten these women playing their best basketball, even through the face of adversity last night, to beat Michigan State 74-61. It ends up being a pretty convincing win, all told, but a lot of dicey moments in the game. And now, now they face Ohio State tonight, only a 1.5-point underdog I saw in the early line. So, a lot of respect for this Iowa women's team, an 11 seed in the Big Ten tournament, but certainly the most dangerous 11 in a while that probably we've seen in any conference tournament. I mean, they're really impressive right now. They may not win tonight, but they've definitely put on a show. They've had a successful week. No matter what happens the rest of the way, I think it's gravy for the Hawks.
Yeah, Chad, you look at last night and the final score is not indicative of what that game was like. A close game, really good basketball by Iowa, late third quarter into that early fourth to give them some breathing room. But you saw Hannah Solke, who's been really good lately and is always really good, get 4 fouls, and they had to turn to that freshman off the bench, Ava Hayden, and she played her best basketball of her career. Talk about her performance when her team needed it the most, and not just physically her performance, but to be mentally ready when called upon, because when you're a freshman and you don't play a ton, you never know when you're going to be needed. Talk about what she gave Iowa off the bench last night in relief of a foul-troubled Hannah Solke.
Yeah, I mean, the big moment, a lot of big moments for Jan Jensen, which is what the subject of my column was, that posted this morning. She had to make a lot of coaching moves last night. Lucy Olson was also in foul trouble, got 2 in the first half, a quick third in the third quarter. She had to deal with that. She also had to deal with, Taylor McCabe and Kylie Feuerbach kind of getting off to cold starts. So she was dealing with a lot of stuff, made critical decisions at critical times, when to bring Lucy back, when to bring Hannah back. Well, she brings Hannah back and she gets that 4th foul, 2:44 to go in the third. And, Ava Hayden has been DNP several times this year. Addie O'Grady is the backup 5 to Hannah Stolke, but Jan Jensen in that moment turned to her third option, which is Ava Hayden. And I give her a lot of credit for, as a coach, for getting all the freshmen in the game a lot on Wednesday night, got them that first taste of experience, got the jitters out, so that when, Thursday came and they needed Ava, she was ready, responds with a career high, 11 points, plays 12 minutes, 4 for 4 from the field. This is against a really good Michigan State team. I mean, a really good defensive team. And I mean, Ava just looked like, kind of a ringer, you bring to the softball tournament, the slow pitch softball tournament at the end. And, all of a sudden you got some cleanup hitter, launching bombs. She was just, she was money, had had basically her own 6-0 run to end the third. So you turn a really dicey situation. Iowa was down 5 midway to late in the third. It was like 46-41, and Iowa exits the third quarter up 54-48, and that was largely due to what Ava did. And then she tacks on 5 more points in the fourth. She was definitely the story of the game. You wouldn't have guessed that Ava Hayden, they bring 2 players to the post-game presser, like where everybody can watch and stream, is Lucy Olson and Ava Hayden last night. So, that a really big moment for the freshman.
Yeah, one you expect, one don't you expect. You don't expect. Lucy Olson, another great night. But, Chad, you look at the box score, and Iowa wins by 13, and they shoot 6 of 25 from 3. Taylor McCabe was good, made 4 of them, but it wasn't a great night shooting for Iowa. Defensively, they played really well, holding Michigan State to 61 points, and the turns were impressive because they were turning Michigan State over, and then they were taking advantage of it and turning it into points. Talk about the defensive side of things, because Iowa can beat you in several different ways, and defense was very important last night.
Yeah, one stat I sometimes ignore or forget to mention, and I did again in my column today, was points off turnovers, and Iowa had 28 points off turnovers. A great observation by you. The very first possession after Jan Jensen's third quarter technical, the first of her career, Kylie Feuerbach gets a steal and run out. It was a really impressive score, too, by Kylie, because she outran 2 defenders and got to the hoop and laid it in, converted. Iowa really did a good job in transition. You think about going back to Ava Hayden, there was her 3-point play was a run out from Lucy Olson. I mean, they just kept pushing it. And a season high, 16, right? Yeah, 16 steals for Iowa. That's a season high against against a really quality Big Ten opponent. Hannah Stolke had 4, Lucy Olson 4, Kylie Feuerbach 3, a Folter 2, Ava Hayden had 2 steals. I didn't even mention that in my story either. That's another little contribution there. So this team is. I was just actually looking at it this morning. They've held. I believe it's their last. Ever since the Ohio State loss in overtime, they've held every opponent to 67 or less in these games. And so you don't think of an Iowa women's basketball team always with defense, but this one really has hung its hat on the defensive end of the floor. And, man, you needed it because Taylor McCabe hits a 3 to open the game, and then Iowa goes 10 straight possessions, Matt, without scoring. They went 10 straight empties. That's a real recipe for disaster in the postseason, yet Iowa was only down 4 at the end of one quarter, despite going 4 for 16 from the floor. That's a testament to the defense that they had. And again, that's I think you got to give this whole coaching staff credit too, because she brought in Randy Henderson as a post coach. We see how that paid off with Ava Hayden. Basically Jan replacing herself as post coach with Randy Henderson, and then brings in Sean Sullivan, a unique hire, former manager, comes from North Carolina, as kind of a defensive specialist. And I'd love to dig in more about that part of it. I've done a little bit on it this year, but I think there's definitely been a renewed sense of defense. Raina Harmon deserves credit too. She's kind of the co-defensive coordinator with Sullivan. So just a lot of credit to go around for this program, and just, again, they're playing their best ball right now, and that's a huge testament to Jan.
Take me through the environment there, because I know there's always a good amount of Iowa fans, but there you have Lisa Bluter helping out with the Big Ten Network stuff. You got Caitlin Clark sitting front and center next to Connor and her mom. It's almost like a feel-good reunion week in Indianapolis, and so much Iowa love in Indy with Caitlin being there. What's the vibe like? You watch on TV here back in the Quad Cities, and you almost have that feel of like those girls aren't going to let those people down. What's it like? What's it like seeing the familiar faces? And it's a interesting environment at the Big Ten tournament for Iowa.
It is. It's definitely. Let me start with this. It's definitely much less attended. We see in Iowa City the women's games are still off the charts popular. Sold out games every time and packed arenas. But these are some of the smallest crowds that Iowa has played in front of all year. It's just not had you're there on Wednesday of the Big Ten tournament. When there's never a big crowd on a Wednesday of the Big Ten tournament, and even with Caitlin, Iowa never really got started until Friday night at these things. So maybe there'll be more fans today, but that doesn't matter. What you're speaking of is kind of the vibe, the positive vibes. And yeah, it was hilarious to watch Caitlin the whole game, get into the game with her Hawkeye sweatshirt on. Connor and Patrick are over there, presumably watching the men's game on their phones. And she's really into the women's game. And, obviously she's friends with so many of these players. And also, she really loves these freshmen. I've talked to her a little bit, and she's a huge fan of all these freshmen. Stremlo, Guyton, you name it. She's really excited about the future of this program, and I think that's reflected in how Iowa fans feel about it too. It's just it's a really great story, especially, and you're happy for all these women so far, but they got more to do, Matt. They came here. Jen Jensen said in her presser, and she wasn't talking trash or anything, but she's basically said, we got 3 more to win. Like we're planning to be here 3 more days. And that's a pretty bold statement for an 11 seed, but they came here to win this thing. They didn't come here just to win too. So it'll be interesting to see, how they stack up now against a team that beat them in overtime in Columbus on President's Day.
An interesting statement from an 11 seed in the best conference in America with the road they have. Let's look ahead to this evening. It's Iowa and Ohio State. And boy, you watch the broadcast, and Iowa is referred to, and not just the Big Ten Network stuff, but when you're watching other things, as the hottest team in the country, or the hottest team in the conference at least, but one of the hottest teams in the country. And then you got Ohio State, an extremely good basketball team. I think it was President's Day that they played less than 2 weeks ago, and Iowa lost in overtime. Take me to the night. Does the the closeness of playing recently help Iowa? Obviously, Lucy talked on Big Ten Network about she's excited. They know who's beating them and they see the road ahead. Take me through the matchup tonight, because it should be a high quality, really good basketball game.
Yeah, it'll be a good test for Iowa, because Ohio State is, of all the teams in the Big Ten, is really known for its pressure, full court pressure defense. And we know from the start of this season, that was a huge problem for the Hawkeyes. You go back to the Tennessee game where Iowa committed 30 turnovers against the press. And they've definitely gotten better, but even last night you saw they're not perfect in that press break. And so this will be a real test of their progress. And, also the tired legs part of it. They've played 2 games in 2 nights. This will be their 3rd game now in basically 48 hours, and Ohio State has yet to take the court. I've talked to people that say, hey, that actually could be an advantage for Iowa. Iowa, if you recall, has come out in some of these Big Ten tournaments in their Friday game a little bit flat, like a couple of years ago against Purdue, for example. Caitlin had kind of a mad game, but they moved on. Then they really started playing once they got to Saturday. But this is a chance for Iowa to maybe, use that energy they've got going and jump on Ohio State. I mean, I think the line, Matt, reflects a game that we expect to be really competitive. I thought the line might be 3.5, 4.5. It's 1.5. An 11 seed is a 1.5 point underdog to a team that's rested, and basically been a top 10 team all season long. And you're 1.5 point underdog in a neutral site. So it should be a great game. The winner presumably is going to get UCLA on Saturday. That's where I think the tired legs, if Iowa does win, could maybe come into play. But I'm going to say it's not going to be a huge factor tonight. Could be wrong, but Jan did such a good job resting those starters on Wednesday. None of them played more than 23 minutes. Obviously, they're in great shape too. And then foul trouble kind of helps or reduce the minutes last night as well. So Hannah Stuelke hasn't even played 40 this week, for example. She's under 40 total for the week. So I think they'll be okay on that end. But Ohio State definitely is a really good team. And Cody McMahon's going to be a handful. Sita Fulcher got 15 boards against her last time in Columbus. But Cody's had some good games against the Hawks. So I can't wait. It should be really fun. And I think it's going to be a great game.
Help me out with because I'm not a professional like you. What time is the game tonight? I know you're Eastern time, but what time is the game here in the Midwest?
In the Quad Cities, 8 p.m. Central Time. 8 p.m. is the approximate time. Now, UCLA and Nebraska tip off at 5:30 your time. So if that game for some reason goes multiple overtimes or has no fouls, the fluctuation could change there. They go to about 25, 30 minutes after a game, about 30. They say 25, but it usually ends up being about 30. So I'm going to say, be ready a little before 8 o'clock, but 8 o'clock is your ballpark time tonight.
Absolutely.
On BTN.
Before I let you go, I know you were working last night and you're focused on the women and that's where you're at. You probably caught up a little bit with the men. A good effort for 3/4 of the game. And they had Michigan State there, I think up 10, second half. Sparty gets hot, they win. Izzo, interesting afterwards. And I remember him doing the same when Todd Licklider was maybe on the hot seat as well. And Tom's going to always, defend his guys. And I get that. And I respect it too. A lot of what he says makes sense. But it's just a weird week for Iowa basketball. What did you take out of last night? Again, another gritty effort. The guys come to show up. Fran had his guys ready. But it's just, a big game against Nebraska where you either move on to the Big Ten tournament or you have an interesting Monday, I guess is the way to put it. Your thoughts on what happened last night on senior night in Iowa City?
Yeah, I was able to watch most of the first half, obviously, because the women's game hadn't started yet. And I kept an eye on it, obviously. But it looked like to me that it was a case of, Michigan State just decided to turn it on finally and also decided to hit some threes. They started 1 for 10 or something like that. So, you see watching just some of the second half a little bit. Michigan State's just on another level with the talent they have. So, but as far as what Tom Izzo said, you wouldn't. He's always liked Fran McCaffery. Always respected Fran McCaffery for the job he's done. Heck, Tom Izzo and Fran McCaffery are the only two coaches in the Big Ten that have 11 upper division finishes in the last 12 years. Now that's going to change this year, but he knows how hard it is comparatively to win at Iowa, and he has a lot of respect for what Fran's done. They love, so you expect him to say that. What happens? It's hard for me to picture Iowa going into Nebraska and winning on Sunday, but you're right. They still have a chance. They still have a chance to get to the Big Ten tournament, to extend their season. I haven't clicked every scenario, but I believe it's a win and in situation because they would win every tiebreaker against Nebraska with a season sweep. So that should get them in to the Big Ten tournament if they could win. And Nebraska's scuffling a bit. But if they don't, then the ball goes into Beth Goetz's court. And I don't know how quick she will make an announcement, either, hey, he's coming back, or we're making a change. I would think it would be sooner than later, one way or another. You don't want to leave it twisting in the wind for too long. Plus, but I don't know. This is the first time we've seen her operate in this seat, in this type of moment, where a high-profile coach has a decision, or she has a decision to make on it. But I don't know. It just felt like it was probably closer to the, I would lean toward, if we're doing sportsbook odds, Matt, what would we say? Like minus 250. That was Fran McCaffery's last game at Carver, I'll say.
That's
and maybe
a really
plus
good
180 comes back.
Yeah, I don't understand these odds that you speak of, Chad, but but no, I would say that it felt like it last night. You know what I mean? It just had that feel, and I wasn't up there. I haven't talked to Tommy yet. Tom Kaker was up there covering it, so haven't talked to him yet this morning, but it just had that feel that it was probably the end, but we don't know, and we'll wait and see. The interesting thing that Tom Izzo talked about, Chad, was the fact that he mentioned resources. I don't know if he said it in that resources way, but he talked about what Fran had to work with, and I don't want to get down that road. We've talked about it in the past, and we'll have you on again when if there's a search and all those kind of things. But resources aren't there at the University of Iowa when it comes to men's basketball. I thought it was interesting that Tom Izzo pointed that out, almost because Fran can't just sit there and talk about that all the time. That looks bad. So it was interesting that Tom did that as well. Speaking of resources, have you been to any place good to eat in Indianapolis since you've been there? I love the Eagle. Have you been to the Eagle, or do you know of the Eagle?
Oh yeah, I believe I've been at the Eagle with you, if I'm not mistaken. So
yes.
Actually, plan to be there today. I have not had. It's been, but I'm going today.
Take me with you, though.
That was the plan. If Iowa got to Friday, we were going to meet.
I think we lost Chad. In fact, I know we lost Chad, which is okay, because we were just wrapping things up with the great Chad Leistikow. He did a fantastic job. We'll come back to me in a one-shot, but always great to chat with our good friend Chad Leistikow here on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. And I'm assuming that's probably on my end and not on his end when it comes to my lovely internet today here in the Quad Cities. So thanks again to Chad Leistikow for joining us. So we got a lot more to get to on today's show. As we mentioned, really excited to welcome a Hall of Famer up next. The one and only Ray Shovlain from St. Ambrose, talking 42 years of coaching basketball over at St. Ambrose University. All that and much more straight ahead on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. When it comes to quality, convenient pizza, Godfather's Pizza in Silvis has you covered. Featuring a beautiful dine-in area, delivery, and a carry-out window. Godfather's Pizza is that pizza you grew up with, not a convenience store. You see, at Godfather's Pizza, the dough is made fresh daily. That mozzarella cheese is shredded fresh and never frozen. And those toppings are abundantly piled high each and every time. Locally owned and operated since 2010, Godfathers is a huge supporter of local athletes right here in the Quad Cities. So come on by and check them out at 1211 Avenue of the Cities in Silvis. Order online at godfathers.com and reunite with that same delicious pizza you grew up with.
Hey, our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad Cities' best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo here on a Friday in the Quad Cities, TGIF. It's March Madness. It's that great time of year. And, you know, when I think of basketball, one of the first coaches that I got to deal a lot with in the media was when I was in college. And it was this handsome devil joining us right now, Ray Shovlain, a head coach over at St. Ambrose. And, Coach, it's been like 1, 2, 3 years you've been over there. 42 years, my friend. Great to see you.
Yeah, it just seems like yesterday, though, Matt. I'll be honest. So, no, but we've really been blessed with the opportunity to be here. Great university, great Quad Cities. I know you feel the same way about the Quad Cities. Just great people. And that's been a selling point of a lot of our student athletes that do come is the nice balance. We're big enough to offer about anything. The Quad Cities is big enough to offer about anything you really want, but it's not too big that you get lost in the shuffle. So, I really think the Quad City has been a godsend as far as towards our recruiting as well. So, people are really intrigued and really enticed to come because of the Quad Cities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to talk to you about your career and all that kind of stuff, but I want to start with this season. And it was a solid season. Coach, you play in a really good conference these days, and to get 15 victories and to make that conference tournament. I know it's not the ultimate goal of what you want at St. Ambrose, but talk about this season because I felt like it was a good team that showed a lot of good signs during the season.
Well, we really did. I tell you what, we lost 8 games by 1 possession, from that standpoint. So it's one of those deals that, we could easily have won 22, 23 games, Matt. You know that by being over here. But, a little bit of it was our own fault, type deal. We did not shoot the ball exceptionally well from outside. And any time in college now at this level, you got to have some guys – you got to have some players that really shoot well from the 3-point line. That just spread the defense out. So then when you have basically everybody standing in the lane, it's kind of hard to get to the basket. But no, we had a great group of guys. We had a very solid season. Could have been better, but we could say that anytime we didn't win the national title too. So, but no, that we had a great group of young men. It was another reflection of how well we've done, to be honest. Over the years, we've had quality young men, student athletes have done exceptionally well in the classroom. We graduate 7 seniors, all in the academic all conference area, 3.5 or better, all with 2 or 3 with unbelievable job opportunities and experiences waiting for them after graduation. So it was another great year that way. We look forward to having another great season again next year. But we had a great group of young men this year.
Coach, it is year number 42. What's different about year number 42 than year number 1? And I guess we'll start on the basketball side of things. X's and O's, you mentioned shooting the 3 and all that kind of stuff. What are the major differences between your first year? And I don't want to age you, Coach. You look great. You look fantastic. But what's the difference? I mean, the game's really evolved, and I want to think it's evolved even more over the last 5 years alone, more or less going over the 42 years in which you've taught the game. What's the same and what's different?
Well, I think everybody wants to win in a sense. I do, and I guess I'll be critical here a little bit. I do think that there's sometimes a little too much focus on uno as opposed to the team. Now, if we're playing racquetball or tennis, that's one thing. But, I really don't care how many points a player scores. I'm looking at St. Ambrose University versus Iowa on the scoreboard. That's all I'm looking for. Now, in years past, we had the vast majority of players would focus more on that than the other. But, it's not I'm not saying that in a negative way, but it's, we got to come back to a little bit, and this is maybe an American comment, there's got to be more personal accountability, from that standpoint. A lot of people, when they have, they start pointing fingers at others for their performance or lack of, type deal. And always remember there's 3 fingers pointing back at you, and that's where the root of the improvement needs to begin. But I mean, overall, guys are still fired up to play, but I do think there's been a shift as far as direction from coaches. We really got into kind of an AAU scenario where you almost have more allegiance to your AAU team than you do your high school team. I see that as that's nice for some. I just see it as a kind of a continued conflict, as far as where their real heart is. So I mean, there's been some significant changes, and I think really significant changes as far as how parents and people look at it as far as support level. My mom and my dad was a U.S. Marine, and I tell you what, I got in trouble one time at school, and I tell you what, they said that everybody had to see they had to see my dad. They had to see everybody's dad before they could come back to school. Holy moly! I go home, man. I'm waiting, and my dad said, "Well, I'll be honest, Ray. I'm not coming. I'm not going down to school because that's a personal problem. That's your problem. I was at John Morrell and Company at 5:30 on the kill line, in a meatpacking plant. That has nothing to do with me. So I come back to school that day, man, and then you'll appreciate this. Everybody else's dads were there except mine, and sister came to me and says, "Where's your dad?" I said, "He ain't coming." She said, "What do you mean he ain't coming?" I said, "Hey," he said, "it was a personal problem. It was my problem." So I had to straighten it out. So whatever you think's fair, sister, as far as discipline's fair with him. And we went on. That happened 55 years ago.
Yeah.
Never forgot it, type deal. So I do think that a lot of people need to go ahead and take more personal accountability and personal responsibility for their actions, both on the floor as well as off. And I think we'd see an increase in performance in both areas.
Yeah, absolutely. That's extremely well said. When you look at St. Ambrose University, it's been 42 years. And obviously the school's grown. I was there. I feel like it was yesterday when I was there, and I graduated in 2001. So it's been almost 25 years. And the first show that I ever did, this is cool for me because the first interviews I ever did was the Ray Shovlain show. So here I am. And I never thought, Ray, I would have never thought 25 years later, I'd be interviewing you in my loft on Zoom, basically. So it's crazy how things work. But what is it about that place and that community that has you still rocking and rolling 42 years later? And I say 42 years, but you were a player there. You're still a record holder there. What is it about that community that has you coming back each and every day?
Well, I tell you, it really comes down to Dr. Rogowski is our former president a number of years ago, and just an outstanding individual. And the presidents that followed have been that way too. It's just, it's just a nice combination. We've done an excellent job of providing for our students. Our students do come first here. That's the same thing with why we've been so successful in basketball. They're a student and then athlete, from that standpoint. But over the years, I tell you what, I was only going to stay 2 years. I'll be honest. We were going to win 30 games the first year. We only played 25, so I don't know how that was going to work. But anyway, I really was. I was going to was going to stay 2 seasons, and then I was going to the big time. I was going to Notre Dame, Iowa, UCLA, whoever. Well, the best thing ever happened to me, Matt, and I know we discussed this a long time ago. Best thing ever happened to me is we didn't win very many games right away. First year. Second year, we didn't win very many games again. Third year, same thing. And honest to God, it came down to, I woke up one day and I said, the best job Ray Shovlain can have is teaching and coaching at this university. My whole life changed. I took that attitude to work. I took that the next morning. Did we win a lot more games that year? No, we didn't. Then the next year, a few more. And then 25, we won 20-plus games for 25 straight years. Almost 30 straight years that happened. You think it correlates? I know it does. The big time is where you're at right now. See, everybody thinks, the big time's down the street or they're getting shortchanged or whatnot that way. My only comment to that is, hey, it might be, the grass might be greener a little bit down the street, but be careful where you're stepping. Might be a lot of manure too. And a lot of times that's what happens. The big time is where you're at right now. The best possible job you can have is the one you got right now. And if you take that attitude to work every single day, you'll go ahead and you'll have you'll have opportunities to leave. And I'll be honest, we have had a lot of opportunities to leave, but I didn't really feel at the time that I would have as much impact on people. We've had a lot of student athletes, and you've been with us in a couple of these that we really have reached out to people in need. We've got a lot of young men and young ladies as well in this community here that need a positive role model, like some of the guys in the basketball team or the football team or wherever else here at this university. And it kind of comes down to the statement, to much is given, much is expected. And if you're blessed, if God's blessed you with that talent and ability, comes accountability and responsibility to reach out to others to make it better. And that's what it's all about when it's said and done. But we got to have positive male role models for a lot of young men that have none. They have no positive role models in their lives if they even have a male involved in their life. So we've really done a great job over the years of community service in that area. I've been slowed a little bit the last couple of years with some, I guess, quote, injuries. But we're going to be returning back to that format next year as well.
I love that. I can remember as clear as day, Coach. I was out of college, and I went back over during the summer. We used to go run over at Lee Loman. We'd sneak in as former alums, and I was working in TV, and I came back in, and I saw a camp that you were doing. We couldn't play basketball because you were running a camp. And at first we were cranky, and then we looked at what you were doing and the people you were talking to and the young kids that probably wouldn't get to do camps like that and meet kids like that. And you looked at them. You looked at the kids look at these players, your players, and they walked out of that building with life-changing experiences. I remember it like it was yesterday. Heck, I remember one time, and you won't remember this, but I was close to a table. It was lunchtime. You guys had pizza, and one little kid got some pizza, and he got 2 pieces, and you were helping hand it out, and the kid goes, "Just 2 pieces? Man, that's not fair." And you looked at him and you said, "Kid, life's not fair sometimes. All right, get out of here. Go eat." And that's right. That's true. Life's not fair sometimes. You're getting pizza. Go eat your pizza. So Ray Shovlain joined us right now on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. I want to go down memory lane a little bit. Is there moments at St. Ambrose that this team was special, that player was special? There's 42 years, and I got a 2-hour show, but I don't got an 8-hour show. So it's hard to ask. But are there teams and players that stand out to you when it comes to looking back at your career so far?
Well, I'll tell you what, that's kind of a double-edged sword because there's so many players that we can acknowledge, and I really mean that. That's why we have won a lot of games, man, to be honest.
Over 700, Coach. Over 700. So let's be honest, that's a lot of games.
A few anyway. But even with that, I was looking the other day. I think we're only one of 60 coaches that have won that many games, although in college basketball overall in the history of the game. But the thing is, man, I didn't play any of the games.
Yeah,
it was all the players, assistant coaches. I was there. But yeah, I tell you what, as far as players go, I think one team that does stand out is we went to the Final Four in about 88, 89. We had a young man named Jimmy Hornacek on the team. He's a pretty good player. His brother Jeff played at Iowa State and played the pros, and really, honest God, one of the nicest families you ever met. And all his brothers were unbelievable athletes as well. Just crazy. His other brother played for the White Sox in baseball, type deal. So, it's just one of those things where, that team probably stands out the first because that's the first Final Four team.
Yeah.
The only thing we really haven't done here is win a national title. That's kind of hopefully if we get the right guys. We got a number of guys coming back next year that are very, very talented and very, very positive leaders. And then we've got some guys coming in. If they come, I could be a really good coach just like that year then, type deal. But, I really think the blend of players we've had, I had, I guess some health issues over the last year or so, but one is, I tell you what, I've never had so many people and players. I mean, not just last year reached out, offered prayers and whatever they could do for myself and my wife. It was just, it was overwhelming, to be honest, type deal. So we very much appreciate that. But again, the one thing I think is great, I was a general accountant. My undergraduate degree is in accounting. My master's is business administration. So I taught in the College of Business for 25, 30 years, as well as athletic director and coach. But one is, I tell you what, it really comes down to impact on people. I had an unbelievable job at Band Egg Incorporated in Muscatine there at their world headquarters at the time. Man, I was just praying to God to get to the Friday and get to the weekend when I was down there, and I, honest to God, this is to come into my office and to go to practice or go to watch a high school game or junior college game. Man, I'm in seven heaven, I'm in high cotton, it's just one of those deals. So I think the one thing that makes it really cool in college basketball, and I think even high school would be the same, you got different teams. Every team is different. And see, that's like when I was doing my reports there as an accountant, man, it was basically all the same, and every team's different. Every team's got a different personality. And it's just nice to deal with that, and it really comes down to, I gave a speech at the Arsenal here yesterday. And it came down to how quickly and positively make adjustments. That's the key to life. That's key to success. Because you're right. Life isn't fair. There's a lot of people have got a lot of hurdles to climb and whatnot that way. But, it just comes down to, it just a new team, new challenges. We overcome them. We move on to the next one. I think it's really pretty cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. You nailed it. And that's the thing, Coach, you talked about. For 25 years, I got to do that. I never felt like going into, and nowadays I ain't working at all. I get to hang out and talk with you. But I mean, when somebody says to you, hey, you got to go cover the John Deere Classic, or you're going to get to go to this Iowa game or some high school game, that's not work. You're paying me to get to do that. Not very well, but you're paying me to get to do that. All right. Sign me up. All right. I love watching you on the sidelines. And unfortunately, maybe because of the health, you're not as animated as you've been in the past. Give me a good story about a referee. Give me what's your best, I had to deal with this guy or call, or you have to have something in 42 years in which you couldn't believe this, or an interaction with a referee. Something along those lines. You got to have something.
Well, I'll tell you, without going into X-rated stuff, but one is I think they better keep it above board. But here just recently, I tell you what, it comes down to one. I told the referee, I said, my mom just called me, and there's no way that's a foul. No way. She just texted me. It's right here. So I showed him myself, and he looked at me like, what are you talking about? I said, no, my mom is pissed. And I tell you what, you've got to go ahead. That was not a foul. So either reverse it or may have a makeup call. She's right here. You want to talk to her? And he didn't know what to say.
I love it. How many times did you get kicked out over your career? Have you kept track?
0.
No kidding.
0.
How many technicals? You haven't kept track of that, have you?
I tell you, honest to God, I know right to where to go to the limit,
mm-hmm.
and then they say that's enough, and I back off.
Yeah.
To be honest, we had a player get 3 this year, type deal. I can't remember the last time I had a technical foul.
That's amazing.
It's just one of those things. But I think it's kind of a respect factor. And I'll be honest, I get on the officials and I get on our players. But I tell you what, it's a challenge scenario. Hey, this isn't Little League. I'm out to win.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, we're going to challenge people. That's where a lot of people don't really like sometimes. They think a little too old school. Well, if we don't challenge your son to get better, he's not going to get better. You don't challenge people to go ahead and step back, evaluate, and make some modifications. They're not going to get any better.
Yeah.
Anybody can tell you. They can tell you what the hell they want to tell you. That isn't going to work. So I mean, I really think but there's a line, with the referees, and when they say, hey, that's enough, it's enough. But surprisingly, as adamant as I've been on the bench over the years, I really haven't had any technical fouls at all.
You're
a
good boy.
Proud. Yeah, my mom said that too. She just texted me. She just texted me from heaven and said, "Hey, Ray, you're a very nice young man."
I love it.
I
love it.
Hey, Mom, thanks.
Coach, and that's the thing I tell my boys, because when you're talking to young people today, and I'm going to sound old, but you need to be challenged. So I tell my boys, if you are comfortable doing something, you're probably not challenging yourself enough. Because I can remember how I was as uncomfortable as I could be my first newscast at WQAD. I had friends and family watching, and I was petrified, and you had to get through it. And I tell them, if you get caught in your comfort zone, you're not pushing yourself. And then fast forward 25 years later, Coach, I was pretty comfortable. I was extremely comfortable going in to do what I do. And that's what I kind of told my boys when I told them I'm making a change. I'm like, I'm too comfortable and I want to challenge myself. And I don't know if young people get that enough. We're joined right now by Ray Shovlain, head coach at St. Ambrose. Some more for you before we let you go, Coach. You look at 42 years and you're already talking about next year. I love that.
Sure.
How long do you want to do this?
Well, I tell you, honestly, I'd like to have another 3 seasons for sure. We got some young men we got a young man from Madrid, Spain, a couple kids from Argentina, a couple kids from England, a number of kids from the States that are really great people, very much like the ones we had years ago, and that's really what's got me fired up. And I tell you what, my wife's really on me too. She doesn't like she doesn't like the losing. That's a big deal. I mean, so anyway, but she, she's really after me to make sure that, hey, this is what I want to do, and with the university and stuff. But the one thing is, I think it's just that's really where I'm looking, I guess, from the standpoint. I think we've got some great interest of new players coming in that would blend well with the other players. Some from the Quad City area, and then obviously some from international perspectives. But if they would come, I really would. I think he'd be a really good coach again. So,
yeah.
We'll wait and see on that.
Yeah, Coach, you mentioned the Quad Cities and some Quad City kids coming through. I love that. As a guy who covered this area, when you can marry some great universities and schools like St. Ambrose and even Augustana with our young people that are from the Quad Cities. And you've done a great job of getting those kids from the Quad Cities, the surrounding areas. Why is that important to you? And talk about our area when it comes to the high schools and the talent, because yeah, you can look at Chicago and all these other areas and everything. I think the basketball here in the Quad Cities is pretty damn good. Talk about the Quad Cities with your program and how important it is.
Well, I think here's kind of, it's a double-edged sword a little bit. We've got a lot of guys in the Quad Cities that are very good players, both on the Illinois side, Iowa side, DeWitt, a number of places that are really solid down towards Peoria. But the one thing is we've had a little difficulty sometimes is they always think they have to leave to go to a good program, or they just have to leave because it's college, And the big thing is that if they're leaving for the right reasons, if they're leaving the Quad Cities, and I know Augie feels the same way, coach over there, is if they're leaving for the right reasons, that's great. If that's really the better fit for them to leave here. But a lot of times they've kind of already, kind of looked that way first, as opposed to, hey, maybe there's some opportunities right here. So we have done a very good job. I can think of about 3 or 4 guys, and 4 or 5 right away that are 1,000-point club winners from Assumption, Bettendorf, Brooke Victor, Tony Lenardi. You go right down the list, from that standpoint.
Matt Fitzpatrick. Peterson. I mean, that's my era right there.
Yeah. Those guys are great people and great players, and they've done exceptionally well after they've left the university as well. But yeah, we had across the board, every public high school in Iowa and Illinois, we've had players from, Devon Binion from Rock Island High School. He was an awful good player for us. Ron Hotchkiss was on that state title team with Duncan Reed. So we've had an umpteen number of players that way as well. And I think it's really good if we have a mixture. And I really think this has really kind of been interesting for some of our players that are from the States to have interaction with somebody from Madrid, Spain. It's just it's a cultural thing, but it's kind of neat too, And we've taken the team to Ireland over the last 15 years. We've taken the team to Ireland twice, San Juan, Puerto Rico once, San Francisco, Florida. We're planning one more trip before I'm done, and we're either going to Rome, Italy, or we're going to Spain if we can. We're kind of the reason we've been a little hesitant, I'll be honest, is who's flying the planes, and just as far as the unrest around the world. So we got to make sure it's safe. But we've had an unbelievable experience there. We did a community service projects for young people over there. It was really cool. We did a basketball clinic one time in Ireland. It was more just an interaction talk between our players and the young people there in Killarney, Ireland. But so we're doing some unique things now. This past year, we played Drake, we played Southern Illinois, we played Western. We're trying to play the best teams over the years, and we've done a pretty good job of that. And God's really blessed us in relationship to being allowed to get those games. It's kind of a God moment. We played Notre Dame, we played Creighton, we played St. Louis U. You go right to Loyola in Chicago, Loyola in California, DePaul, just to name a few. But that's really a great experience. Now a lot of my friends, and no offense to them, they'll play St. Paul the Apostle grade school over here in Davenport for a win. That's not me. That's just not me. I don't give a rat's ass you beat St. Paul's. I want to step on the floor at Notre Dame. Now, the one thing is what game is a player is going to remember? It's when they're in South Bend, Indiana. Yeah. Okay? That's the one they're going to remember St. Paul down the street here on Locust, type deal. So we really have, God's really blessed us, as far as the opportunities that we've had over the years, to make it, really, I think, an interesting experience for our players. And the one thing we've really been very, very proud of, I might stand corrected on this, virtually every kid that played out his eligibility with us graduated, type deal. And we've had we've had guys in engineering, industrial, as well as mechanical. We've had guys in OT, PT. We've had guys in nursing. And then we've had a host of guys in business and accounting, and those they've always been strong. But the health science areas is where we've really drawn a lot of people, a lot of students. And a lot of those guys, when they left the university, they balanced the basketball, they balanced taking the physical therapy and occupational therapy classes at a high level, and have done exceptionally well since they've left.
Coach Ray Shovlain joining us right now. Coach, before I let you go, college basketball in general, and I know it comes down to the NAIA level, and you talk about kids looking to go. They have a good season at SAU, and they're like, well, where can I go now? And this transfer portal stuff and NIL and all these kind of things. What are your thoughts on all of this kind of stuff, and maybe the lack of regulation to any of it?
Right.
It's almost like the Wild Wild West right now, and it's so different than what it used to be. Your thoughts on the things that are the talking points in college basketball right now, which is transfer portal, NIL, all that kind of stuff.
Well, one, there's no loyalty. That's one. Okay, you're not in for the long haul. But I hate this will be a negative comment. And I apologize because I'm always on the other side, but it's the end of college athletics, to be honest. I did a little report. I brought this up in a class I was teaching a couple of years ago, and people looked at me like, what are you talking about? It's going to basically now the 60 schools that play football in Division I, they're going to stay because there's so much money involved. Now, that will continue. Everything else is going to turn into a major league, minor league farm system. So, that's just the way it's going to be, because people are going to, they're all rotating teams, conferences and whatnot that way. But that's what I think it'll come down to. You'll have the major leagues, and then you'll have farm systems that feed into that if they have that type of structure. But I mean, as far as college athletics, I hate to say it, but it's coming the way we know college athletics is coming to an end. Type deal. Just it's unfortunate, but I just don't see any other way around it. Because everybody's with the NIL, even at this level, we've got guys shifting around and whatnot that way, and it's just it's unfortunate. I don't know how better to put it. I guess it's unfortunate because I guess I've been used to it all that way. But for a player to come in and play 1 year and then leave, I don't know. Again, it's a team sport, so I don't know how we're building camaraderie and an additional strength for next year and the year after if people don't hang very long. So
No.
Very unfortunate, I think, Matt. To be honest.
No, I agree. I got a mom that goes crazy because she loves Iowa basketball, and she's like, "Well, who will be there next year?" And I'm like, I don't know, Mom. I hear this, I hear that, all those kind of things. And not just at Iowa, it's everywhere. Illinois got a really good team. Illinois has a really good team. I don't want to, the S is silent, obviously, but the Illinois got a really good team. But you sit there and it's completely different from last year. And next year's going to be completely different. And I think you're right. The loyalty aspect of things is interesting. And so last one for you. My son and I got 4 of them, but a couple of them went to an Augie game with me. I went over to an Ambrose game one afternoon for some games, and I think they were not surprised. I don't mean it in a negative way. They were just impressed. Is more of the level of play at Augustana, at St. Ambrose. It's really, really, really good basketball, Coach. I mean, really good basketball. Talk about where that level has come to, because it's the talent level on the floor at Lehman Arena on a Saturday afternoon during the winter is awfully impressive from both sides.
Well, I really think I totally agree. Just like Augie, you go to an Augie game, you go to one of our games. I tell you what, they're pretty talented players, and it isn't like that. It isn't like they're not in shape. They've been in the weight room. They've been in physical condition. They've had maybe personal trainers. They're after it, type deal. So I really think until somebody really actually goes and sees a game, near the floor, they won't understand how big, how fast, how strong our players are. And these guys, just think of how good you have to be in the Big Ten, type deal. But we have. I really think that a lot of people miss the boat and don't understand how good the players are at this level, and they can do multiple things. We invite people to come over. We have a lot of groups come over, and we talk to them after the game with pizza and over pizza, and the players talk to them. And almost every one of the sponsors or the coordinators or the teachers that are with them. They say exactly what you just said, man. Man, we're really surprised these guys your players are that big, that fast, type deal. So Yeah, so I just think that it's small college athletics in a lot of ways is undersold just because people don't recognize or have really came to a game.
All right, I need the secret before you go. How you looking so good? How are you as sharp as you are? I forget to put my underwear on like every other day because I'm getting old. Like, what's the secret? Because I know you've had some health issues and all that kind of stuff, but you're doing good, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that, Matt. I tell you what, in all honesty, I fell January 19th, and I tell you what, my whole body went septic. And God is my witness. I had five surgeries. Shortest one was 2 hours. Longest one was 5 hours. And the prayers from people like yourself and others saved me. You know, and I'll be honest, I'm not a Bible beater, but I go to mass every day. And I got to the gates there, but I was at the wrong gates. So I asked the Lord for a second chance. He said, I'll give you one. So it's kind of like, I got to the point, to be honest, it's like that Sean Shump redemption. Either get busy living or get busy dying. You know, I'll be honest, I was right there. A lot of people didn't think I'd make it, my wife included, to be honest. It was a situation where I had to rally. That's really what it comes down to. And I tell you what, you know, there's a lot of things that are unfair in life, but I tell you what, if you step back and fully comprehend that life is unfair, that gives you choices. Then you either choose to live or die. You choose to do something positive or you know, wallow in your self-pity. It's one or the other, but you have a choice. So now you're more in charge. See, that's what people don't understand. Once you get that, you know, that gives you a choice. You know, and that choice means, hey, I can either go one way or the other. You know, and thank God, I mean, I really have. I've been blessed. I've been blessed with my wife Betsy, and I've been blessed really with my daughter Caitlin. Have really been unbelievable, and my son Sean. But Caitlin and my wife has just been unbelievable as far as their help, as far as medications I got to take, this, that, the other. But it's been an interesting last couple of years. But we're back. We'll be back to normal here, or we are back to normal, Matt, and we're fired up for next year.
What's normal when it comes to Ray Shovlain? Let's not get carried away. Normal is Ray Shovlain. And Coach, I love you. I appreciate you doing this. And it's fun because you mentioned that wife of yours, and people always say my better half or all those kind of things. You know, I know firsthand because I live it. It's the wives that make the world go round, and we're lucky to have them. We all out-kicked our coverage and all that kind of stuff that they say. We're really lucky. I didn't give you a adequate welcome because you're a Hall of Famer, over 700 victories. You're still hold school records when it comes to like career assists, season assists, game assists, all that kind of stuff as well. So I appreciate you taking time to do this. I told you when I called you, I said the beauty part is I don't have any limit to how long I get to talk to you. And that's what I love about it. So be well, stay healthy. We'll talk real soon. And I can't wait to watch St. Ambrose basketball here next winter.
Thanks, man. Thanks for all your help over the years, too.
All right. That is Ray Shovlain, the absolute GOAT over at St. Ambrose University, looking great, and I'm excited to see him. Year number 43 next year, I believe. So, Coach Shovlain doing great things still over at SAU. Well, we're just getting started here on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. We'll be back right after this. When it comes to quality, convenient pizza, Godfather's Pizza in Silvis has you covered. Featuring a beautiful dine-in area, delivery, and a carry-out window. Godfather's Pizza is that pizza you grew up with, not a convenience store. You see, at Godfather's Pizza, the dough is made fresh daily. That mozzarella cheese is shredded fresh and never frozen. And those toppings are abundantly piled high each and every time. Locally owned and operated since 2010, Godfather's is a huge supporter of local athletes right here in the Quad Cities. So come on by and check them out at 1211 Avenue of the Cities in Silvis. Order online at godfathers.com and reunite with that same delicious pizza you grew up with. Welcome back to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo on a Friday here in the Quad Cities. It is March. March Madness is in full swing, and there's a little basketball game over at Sherrard High School tonight that I wanted to talk about. So I figured there's no better person or two to talk about than the duo they call the Taylors, Ty and Jim Taylor, the legend and his dad, joining us here on the show. Gentlemen, first and foremost, thanks for doing this. I want to start with Jim because I felt bad because I had Ty on the show and I didn't have you. I should have had you on first. Come on. What was I thinking?
Oh, I don't know about that. You probably said when you sent out the invitation yesterday, you wouldn't want to do this show, would you, Jim Taylor? Because somebody couldn't make an appearance today, so we'll get the Alito radio guy. But the one thing I'll say about Ty and myself, the way you should begin the conversation, we're graduates of the John Hoshite School of Broadcasting. That's where we're from.
That's very well said. That's very well said. I love, and everybody that doesn't know, Ty and Jim, Ty at WRMJ right now. Jim, you're still there, kind of, right? You're working there?
Yes, my main job is with the Illinois Farm Bureau, but I can't give up local radio, especially this time of the year with the March Madness experience.
Yes. So, and the beauty part about it is I came down there a couple months ago and was on Sportsline, and what WRMJ is doing, and Jim, I'll let you handle this one with the resources that ownership is putting into that place. It's a beautiful thing because local radio at a lot of places and a lot of other markets aren't getting the love that you guys are getting right now.
No, and I think the new ownership, I mean, the foundation was with John Hoshite or even Roger Coleman, who brought radio to Alito in 1979. But I think the owners that bought the station from John, they understood, hey, this is a key piece of the puzzle for this community going forward to have the local flavor. So they're committed to local programming. They've made the investment in the downtown studio, and they're engaged in the community. And a big part of the engagement is, local radio and do our local sports, I should say, and being connected to the local school districts that we cover, like the Sherrard Tigers tonight, of course.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Plus, good news for you is it takes Junior off your payroll. It gives him a job, right? So you don't have to worry about supporting him the whole time. You're wearing the shirt, Ty. Before we talk about Sherrard, and I want to really get into that game because I believe, Ty, you, maybe both of you saw Manual on Tuesday. So I want to talk to you about them as well. But the shirt, I thought it was an emoji of your dad telling you no when you were little because the thumbs go down.
Yeah, literally. It does look like that.
You got to explain the shirt to me.
So, Sherrard, their first road game of the year, they played Orion, and that was the night where Ryland Carney ended up scoring 36 points, and they beat them, I think, 63-42 was the score. And they were doing this new, celebration where when they would, Orion would take a timeout or whatever, and Sherrard had a lot of momentum, their kids would come to the sideline with their thumbs down like this, and it was just I thought it was kind of funny looking. So I asked Coach Johnson after the game, I'm like, what's that about? So he told me it was just something they kind of picked up from, I think, is Oregon football. They do that when they play on the road, when they're in a hostile environment. They want basically at the end of the night for it to be quiet, right? And they want the fans to go home sad or upset or whatever because, the visiting team came in and beat them. And obviously, Sherrard has won a ton of games on the road this year, and I really liked it because they have this kind of swag about them when they play too with the year they've had. So I'm big on the thumbs down. I love the T-shirt. I had to put it on for the day today because I know, and you talked about Manual there, I'm sure we'll talk about them in a moment, but the Tigers, they're going to need a lot to go their way to beat Manual tonight because that team is really impressive. Oh, my gosh.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, now this is my public plea to Alex Johnson that, boy, I would love a shirt. Man, I don't know. If that would look good on the off the air, I don't know. So that's my cheap, pathetic plea for, hey, Jim, the best stuff in media is free. That's the only reason we do this stuff. So talk about Sherrard, and I know you both have been around him a little bit. I had Alex Johnson on yesterday. What a game on Wednesday. But that team is infectious. They're kind of fun to be around. Kind of talk about just the season they've had before we get into the actual X's and O's of tonight.
Well, I'll begin this way with my connection and why I think it's such an awesome story for the radio station is I look at the Sherrard staff for me because I've been doing it for 35 years. So it's awesome for me to see the head coach, Alex Johnson, graduate of Sherrard. We broadcast his games back in the day. Mike Jones, an assistant, former head coach at Mercer County, played arguably in one of the greatest games ever in Sherrard Tiger basketball history that we broadcast. And I love that connection. He's on the staff. Ethan Earl, a Sherrard kid, broadcast his games. He's on the staff. Now, Jason Marshall was an Orion kid, broadcast his games at Orion. He's on the staff. And then Ridge Greenman, a Ridgewood kid, on the staff and broadcast his game. So I love that connection. That hits home to me. And for doing it as long as I have to say, hey, yeah, I knew these 5 youngsters I just mentioned, are they going to be successful in life in whatever they do? And they've decided, hey, I want to continue to have a connection to interscholastic athletics. And I love that story. And the other thing for me, and I'll get into the team in a moment, but the community has been great. And the engagement of the community. And Ty's wearing a T-shirt, and today I'm wearing my.
Oh God! I thought you were going to take your shirt off, and there was nothing under.
Yeah, Alex Johnson gave me this Fear the Roar T-shirt a while back. So he started this Park District thing where they do their engagement and their camps at local parks in the Sherrard School District in the summer. Bring kids out to play, have the team there, get the connection. So I think that's awesome. And I was telling Ty, if you saw it Wednesday night, Rylan Carton was so awesome in terms of the performance he had. Storm the court. They give away these Rylan Carton cards, like trading cards. And I mean to tell you, he took every picture with every kid,
that's awesome, every
parent, and signed every one of those things. And I just think that's awesome. And the other thing about the connection, so for me and even for Ty, I saw Jeremiah Johnston. He had an interaction on our Twitter account today. He played in the last super sectional game at Sherrard. Social media interaction with Eric Lawson, one of the greats, not just at Sherrard, but in Illinois basketball lore. Eric Hutchins, who's the PA announcer there. Brian Brooks, who played on the 1992 state tournament team. He's reached out and following. And I think about Jansen Bender and the crowd over there. And I love those stories just because the legacy of the station and the connection of all the games we've covered, kind of being a full circle moment where these kids played back in the day, but now they're engaged as community members, coaches, or fans or whatever. So that's like a long, answer. But then as far as the team, you knew this, from last year, their season ended prematurely. They lost in the regional championship game. And you knew this year a determined bunch and a force to be reckoned with. And they became the instant credibility is when they beat Rockridge once, and then they went over to Edgington the second time. And that's when you knew they were the real. That was the Carter Brown explosion game where they had 18 points in the second half, and they won at Edgington, and they swept their regular season series. You knew this was their season, special season, because you knew they had to beat the Rockets at least once or twice, and they beat them twice. So I think that second meeting with Rockridge, because internally I told Ty here at the station that day, I said the second time they played, I said I think Rockets by 8.
I said 9.5. I completely agree.
They won it. That's the game Carter Brown had that day was a legendary performance. But to see Rylan Carton, what he's done in the postseason, and what's the great story about him is he wasn't this phenom coming in. You can talk about his last name and the connection with DJ Carton, but he wasn't a phenom. He gradually became this magnificent player because he worked on his game and his skill set, and he grew in his body, and you're like, holy smoke, what a player he is. But you could kind of see that when he was a sophomore, that he was going to be a special talent and a good kid. I mean, I really loved what he did Friday night. Who doesn't love something like that when you see a kid spend that much time signing everything, interacting with all the kids, putting his arm around them or whatever. So awesome. But so I'll segue to Ty.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else I can say. He talked for like 10 minutes there.
Okay.
It's been a special year. You win 30 games. It's, obviously really memorable. And some of the games that they've had where they've been able to rally back like they did on Wednesday against Tri-Valley to win in overtime 65-63, like Ryland Carton, like my dad just talked about, has had such a great year. And it's been just a joy to watch him progress as a player. And that's something with Sherrard too. It's not just him, like all their kids, I think, have grown as players so much over the past 3 or 4 years. Like James Blackwell, who's another senior for them, I think has just become a great high school basketball player. He's always had, really high level athleticism, but he's become such a polished and skilled player. I think Carter Brown is a great player for them as a junior. And just kind of the other role kids they have, like Ryder Veranda as a junior for them, that has really become a very good varsity basketball player this year, kind of his first year playing at the varsity level. Aiden Taranes is a Division I baseball kid who's a great story with him is that he, initially this year wasn't going to play basketball, focus more on just the baseball side of things. He's a commit to UIC up in Chicago. And after the first week or two of practice, he came to Coach Johnson and said, I'm missing this too much and I need to be a part of this. And he's been a huge part of them winning 30 games. And I think that says a lot about kind of the culture of what Sherrard basketball is now when you get a Division I level athlete and a kid who maybe isn't, very focused on wanting to play basketball, who had decided in his mind that he was not going to play and then changed his mind after, I think the change came when Sherrard and my dad talked about some of the stuff they do, off season, going around to the parks, but they also do this great tip-off night to the season. It's like the Friday before the first week of the regular season. They call it the Tiger Showcase, and they have a thing at the high school. It's kind of almost like a Midnight Madness type thing you see with colleges back in the day, where they do it, but they have, every team in the district. So starting with their third grade teams, they get a scrimmage on the high school floor and play in front of everybody all the way up, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and then the junior varsity team plays a scrimmage and the varsity team scrimmages, and there's just this huge crowd. It's an awesome environment, and I think Aiden was at that, and he realized oh man, I really want to be a part of this. And he said, Coach Johnson said he texted him the next day or over that weekend and said, hey, I think I made a mistake, and they welcomed him back obviously with open arms, and he's worked his way into their starting lineup, and like I said, has been a huge part of them winning 30 games and getting to the Sweet 16 and getting a crack at a team who a lot of people think tonight is going to win a state championship in Manual. So it's just been so fun to follow them, and they're just such all great kids and great families to get to know. And I'm really rooting hard for them tonight, man. It'd be pretty memorable if they could pull it off on the home floor tonight against Manual.
Yeah, no, it should be a lot of fun. Ty and Jim Taylor from WRMJ joining us right now and off the air. You go Friday night, 45-point performance from Ryland Carton, legendary. And then it's I'll follow that up with a buzzer beater in overtime, 30 points, whatever it is. What was that gym like? And Ty, you've seen a lot of gyms and environments, and Jim, you've seen every type of environment in the history of basketball, I think. What were those environments like? Because I watched the highlights. I watched some on YouTube. I'm going to try to sneak over there tonight, but it had to have been amazing, the environment, especially on Wednesday at Sherrard. Kind of talk about that's good old small school March Madness basketball, isn't it?
Yeah, to play in the sectional at home is just really special. And for Sherrard, it's been, 19 years since they had won a regional. So, I mean, it was something I've really never seen before. And I'm sure tonight will be even turned up a notch. But just the noise in that gym, because, they play Tri-Valley, which if you're unfamiliar where Tri-Valley is, it's out of Downs, Illinois, which is, probably 15 or so miles southeast of Bloomington. So it was a long trip for them. And they brought a decent following. I think they brought a student bus because the students all got there together. But, when Sherrard ran onto the floor, the full bleachers on the home side were packed, and then probably, I would say, half or 3/4 of the visiting bleachers were Sherrard fans too, where it was just an incredible amount of noise anytime anything happened for Sherrard. But then, when Ryland hit that shot at the end, I've never heard anything like that in a high school environment. That was, just next level energy and emotion and an outburst. And just, it's awesome, like I said, for them to get a play at home. And I know, I mean, we talked about that a lot on our post-game broadcast on Wednesday night too. Like, it was just, it was awesome, man. It was really awesome.
And, you know, being here, so I first started in the early 90s, and Sherrard was kind of the must-see basketball program then in the Eric Lawson era. And it felt like that again, where, with the exception, they used to play on the rubber tartan floor or whatever. But now it's the wood floor, and you just could feel the buzz immediately when they opened the door at 6 o'clock to let the fans in to get to their seats for the 7 o'clock tip. So their community is hungry for it. And, you know, you just hear some of the stories of the people that are either listening to the games or coming to the games and may haven't been there for a while, but have been engaged. But getting back to Ryland Carton, so one of my favorite stories this week, so Chad Bell is the Mercer County Farm Bureau president, Sherrard grad, in Alex Johnson's wedding. And he told me that story back during the Christmas holiday tournament that they host over there. And so he was texting me after the game Wednesday, said, man, I don't know if I can go to sleep. Can't wait till Friday or whatever. And he said, so he's got a boy, I don't know how old he is, elementary school kid. And Ryland like signed his hand or signed something. He said, my kid said he's never going to wash his hand ever again. So hearing those like stories where you get the connection of that, I just think it's so awesome. And I'm not here to get in this whole debate about big schools versus small schools, but I always think like rural schools and community are intertwined and synonymous to one another, that it's like when they play, it's like, hey, the insurance agent's there, you know, the funeral home's there, you know, the local business is there. And I just love that connection, and you really feel that buzz at Sherrard this year. I think a chance to be a really special night tonight. I know that the crowd is going to be tremendous. And, you know, that we always talk about, like the beauty and the agony of the journey. And you talk to coaches, how much can you enjoy what just happened? So basically, you talk about what happened Wednesday night in a 90-second rally down 6 and you win. And you basically get to enjoy that maybe for 30 minutes. And then Coach Johnson said, I said, how long did you enjoy it? Well, about 20 minutes. Then boom, put Manual on the board and have to get ready for them. So, I mean, that's the way it is. Yeah. I mean, that's what I said. I mean, by the time they take the court tonight, you'll think that game was like 3 years ago, Wednesday night. Yeah. And
no, they get to move on. The fans get to celebrate. They got to get back to work. I remember, Jim, just 2 years ago, not to bring Rock Ridge into a Sherrard discussion. I don't want to get anybody mad at me, but those guys left to go to state down and over at Rock Ridge, and they had a send-off, and then they stopped at the school. And all the kids were lined up outside the school with signs and all that kind of stuff. And they got out of the bus and signed autographs and gave high fives. And I'm just sitting here thinking, like, they're rock stars in their own community, and they're high school kids, and that's pretty cool. And I agree with that to the day. And it's the same thing over at Sherrard. All right, here comes Big Bad Manual. I know they're good. I've heard all about them. I've seen them some. Somebody explained to me how good they are, and then how Sherrard, because they do have some advantages. I mean, they're at home. They're really good. They got a ton of momentum. Talk about Manual, and give me the blueprint for the upset of March Madness tonight at Sherrard.
Well, speaking about Manual, now watching them Tuesday, they're the best, small school team that I've seen all year. And you use small school, obviously, in quotes because of the history of that program. But, the enrollment is what it is, and they're a 2A school now as a public school in the city of Peoria. They are loaded. They've got 6, 7, 8 kids that they bring in the game that are all really elite defenders. They pressure the ball from baseline to baseline. They run this kind of 1-2-2 trap in the full court after makes that, you see teams like, in our area run a 1-2-2 throughout the year, but there's nothing like the quickness and athleticism that Manual has, the way they kind of get to the spots and shut down passing lanes. And then once, you're able to break the pressure, it's, just man-to-man, tough, hard-nosed defense that they play. And I thought it was great what Coach Jeremy Anderson from Macomb said going into the game Tuesday. And obviously Macomb pulled off a wild upset over Manual last year. But he said when you play them, it's not just every pass is contested, but he's like every dribble you take is contested by them. And he said, it's hard to even make one pass in the half-court offense against them. So that's the thing that sticks out, is on the defensive end. But they're very skilled offensively too. And sometimes you can get people can say, oh, teams like that, all they do is just get up and down the floor and get to the rim. Well, they've got some skilled players that can shoot it, pull up. I mean, their best player is Dietrich Richardson, who's a Bradley University signee. He's the nephew of DJ Richardson, who played for Illinois and had a great career for the Illini in the early 2010s. He's about 6'7". He plays kind of a wing/guard spot. He's a really, really tough matchup. I think their point guard, Reggie Postlewaite, is just next level quick. I mean, he just bursts up and down the floor and can get to the rim and is a great defender, like we said. So it's a uphill battle for sure. I don't think I'm out of line in saying, like, if this were a postseason series, best of 3, best of 5, best of 7, Sherrard has no chance. But there's one game, and when there's one game, you always have a chance. And I think Sherrard is well coached enough and their players are good enough that in a one-game sample size, they'll compete. They can compete with Manual. They can beat them on the right night, but it's going to take a lot to go right. Like you said, the one thing I do like about it, they're playing at home, which I think will give them something. And that at least one kid on Sherrard's roster, Rylan Carton, can go toe-to-toe with anybody on that Manual team. He's one of the best two-way players in the state, Rylan is. I mean, in the postseason, I totaled up, he's averaging over 30.5 points per game in the postseason so far, over 20 per game on the year. He'll score tonight, and I think Sherrard is good enough defensively. I think you're going to have to switch up how they defend, though. They like to pressure in the full court, run and jump. I don't think that they'll have success doing that against Manual, just the athleticism advantage that Manual has. Sherrard, what they need tonight, they need Manual not to knock down perimeter shots. They need to, try to do all they can to stop them from getting to the rim. And then I think the big thing is you cannot turn it over. Live ball turnovers against Manual are an automatic 2 points. I mean, they will score a layup or a dunk every time if you turn it over with the ball still in play. So got to take care of the ball, and you want to try to slow the game up, but it's hard. It's kind of a double-edged sword, I feel like, because if you do slow it up and play in the half court, you still got to try and score on them in the half court. And if you try to hold the ball for 30 seconds, 45 seconds, a minute, in my opinion, most teams, the way Manual defends, all you're going to do is end up turning the ball over, because it's a lot to ask a team to be able to withstand that for a minute straight, taking care of the ball with the way they defend. Like I said, every pass, every dribble is risky against them. So it's going to take a great effort, no question about it. But Sherrard is talented enough, and like I said, well coached enough that I think they can put something together to give themselves a chance tonight. They just got to stick around. If they can stick around, and then you just hope for some magic maybe in the fourth quarter to pull it out. That's my opinion, at least.
All right, Ty, I need you to plug your ears because I'm going to talk nice about you. I just was talking to Greg Armstrong the other day, and I'm like, Ty's good, man. He's young, and he's like, we didn't know how to put our, we didn't know how to do anything at that age. And Greg's like, I know. And so my question to you, Jim, is when did you realize that this kid, like I got some kids around my house that like to play on the microphone and all that kind of stuff. And I always tell them, don't get into what I did because it's probably not going to be there when you go do it. But when did you realize growing up that this knucklehead had the gift that he has? Because, like I said, plug your ears. He's really, really good, Dad.
Yep. And I've heard that from a lot of people. And I think just growing up around it, I mean, he's the influence of just being around the business for, his whole life, knowing his dad has worked at WRMJ and have done the games, and then being around John Hoshite. And then, I think that's just a big part of it. That's, what he's known in his life. His dad has worked on the radio, so he transitioned to that, and I think he went to a great institution in the Quad Cities at Augustana College, and I think there were some great influences there. And
Dave Rath,
yeah, that's right, no question about it.
Yes.
And then just when you get involved in the media and work with people, professionals in the media. You learn knowledge from them. And then just being around, I think we've always been fortunate with the buy-in from the schools and the communities that we cover, and the coaching staffs and just the school districts and the administrations in general. They help make this job a little bit easier too. So I think that's a big part of it. But I think being a part of it, and talent is talent. That he makes it look easy, and there hasn't been probably a better call in the station than what happened on Wednesday night, really, to be quite honest. I mean, It was high-level broadcasting. So.
No, he does okay. Hey, Ty, we made fun of you as well. Greg and I made fun of you as well. We didn't just talk nice about you. For like 10, 15 seconds, we talked nice about you, and then we made fun of you. So just so you don't get your...
And I do appreciate those words from both of you guys. I mean, two Quad Cities broadcasting legends, Matt Randazzo and Jim Taylor. Oh, my gosh. If there's a Mount Rushmore, it's you two, Dan Pearson and Brian Stocking.
Well, that we're making a road trip this summer. You said we were doing that. Can I circle back one thing to the game? For me, is very important. He hit on it too. I think a couple things, like he said about live ball turnovers. I call them run out turnovers. You can turn the ball a little bit against them, just as long as you don't give, like he said, the layup, dunk, or whatever, because that's when really Macomb in the latter portion of the second, early in the third, they had been turning the ball over, in the first 12 minutes of the game, but they weren't the run out turnover, so they're kind of hanging in there. But then they had about 6 turnovers that led to easy 2-point baskets. So a big thing for me tonight is you try to get little victories in these games. And if you can say, hey, we're beating the press, they're not going to throw that on us. That's one victory. So if you can get them early in the game to say, well, we can't press them because they're doing a good job of attacking it, we're just going to play them man-to-man in the half court. Now, that's tough enough. I no question about that. But if you can take some of the things away from them, then you have a chance. And it has to be a perfect storm, I think, for Sherrard to win. But, foul trouble's big. Sherrard's got to stay out of that. But I do like kind of the ball handling matchup sometimes in small school basketball where Carton's a 6'4" kid. Who are they going to put on him? And if they do press or whatever, he can handle the ball, maybe look over the press a little bit better. Blackwell, kind of lanky, can handle the ball a little bit better. And, the Brown's such a tough player in Veranda. I just think kind of a good nucleus. But like I said, got to get off to a good start. Don't give up the run-out turnovers. And hopefully the purple and gold can converge on the Harry Hunt Gymnasium floor tonight. So
well, I love it. If you guys can't make it over to Sherrard, you guys got it covered on WRMJ as well. So support local radio. You guys do an awesome job. I appreciate you guys coming on today, and we'll do it again sometime soon. We'll be talking softball before you know it and all that good stuff. But the legends, Jim Taylor and Ty Taylor, joining us on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. Fellas, enjoy the call tonight. We appreciate you.
Thanks, man. We'll see you over at Sherrard, right?
I love it.
I want to be on the next show when we have the round table discussion on conference affiliation for the school on the hill, Alleman High School.
They gotta find somewhere. Gosh, God knows that. We gotta find somewhere. So, all right, fellas, we'll talk to you real soon.
Thanks, man.
All right, that is Ty and Jim Taylor. Check out WRMJ tonight. Huge game for Sherrard. Best of luck to the Tigers. And also good luck to Rock Falls and Princeton. They play each other in another sectional showdown tonight as well. We got more to get to on Off the Air on a Friday. We'll be right back. Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air on a Friday here in the Quad Cities. Thank you guys for weathering the storm with me. It's not storming outside anymore, but planned maintenance on the old internet today. So if you are looking for the show, it is out there in 2 different forms. Part 1 with Chad Leistikow, who was awesome. We appreciate Chad for taking the time, and he's busy out in Indianapolis to do all that. So thanks to Chad. Obviously, the Iowa Women's Night at 8 o'clock, and then the Iowa Men on Sunday winning, get in the Big Ten tournament. But obviously the big story there is the future of the program after this season comes to an end. We also want to thank Ray Shovlain for joining us. That was a ton of fun. We'll get that entire interview up as well. I think we got most of it up there. I think just the intro we missed on the social media stuff. So, but, and then also thanks to Ty and Jim Taylor, and best of luck to Sherrard, Rock Falls, and Princeton tonight. They all look to advance to the super sectionals on the hardwood. It will be a ton of fun. Hey, I want to thank everyone for watching the show today and this week, and just in general. It's been a ton of fun. It's been a very good week, a very successful week. We've had a lot of fun doing it. Go back this weekend, check out all the shows. Gary Dolphin and Pat Anger together on Monday were awesome. Scott Doctorman was great, talking NFL stuff and NFL draft and combine and all that kind of stuff on Wednesday. And today's show, a lot of fun as well. All the shows, a ton of fun this week. We'll have a full week next week for you. So, thanks so much. If you haven't told some friends, tell some friends. The numbers are good. We want them to get up and higher and higher. So thanks so much for watching today's show. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you back here next week on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo.